Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Opp. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for UNDP. I apologize for not being there in person with you today, but it's my pleasure to spend a few minutes to describe how UNDP is working with partners worldwide to build inclusive digital ecosystems. The first thing to mention is that UNDP is undergoing its own digital transformation. Since 2019, we've had a digital strategy in place that looks at how we can change and reimagine our programs, the way that we serve our partners, to be more digitally enabled. It also looks at how we can change our internal systems so that they are modernized and fit for purpose. And this is a shift for UNDP because we've been working in the digital space for the last few decades. We've got quite a lot of experience, but we weren't doing that in a systematic and coherent way. So the digital strategy was a way that we could put our ambition and our vision together on what a digital UNDP looks like and how we really can get there over the next few years. We had launched our strategy for a few months when the COVID pandemic hit. And I think all of us realized that the pandemic really allowed us to learn several important insights about digital in the development space. Firstly, we saw that countries with a more established digital infrastructure generally were able to respond more efficiently and effectively to the needs that the COVID pandemic gave rise to. So countries were able to scale up social protection measures. They were able to implement new e-government services and things very, very quickly if they already had that infrastructure in place. The second thing is that closing the digital divide is a much more urgent and important issue because COVID really showed that if you're not connected to the internet, the kinds of e-services and things that were able to be put online very quickly, we're not going to reach people who don't have a connection. Thirdly, we see that in general, a lot of digital responses, including within governments, are very fragmented and isolated. So we know that digital needs more integration and coordination overall, even within a particular government. Fourthly, we know that digital transformation or digital approaches need to be intentionally inclusive because it's quite easy to put a digital solution in place and only reach a portion of the population unless you're very specifically putting inclusion into your planning. And the last insight is that we need to understand the risks related to digital as well, so that in addition to the benefits that digital brings, there are also some challenges like the issue of misinformation, polarization in society, and data privacy, and so on. To respond to these insights, UNDP created this whole of society digital transformation framework. And I believe that my colleague, the regional director, has already mentioned this, but this whole of society framework really puts all of the components that we think are necessary for an open and inclusive digital ecosystem at a government and a society level. So the important pieces of the framework is that it's meant to be universally focused, so include everyone, leaving no one behind, that it takes a very principled, rights-based approach to the use of digital technology, that it has equality in mind in terms of accessing the benefits of digital transformation, and that it's an open and transparent process. And we've developed the digital readiness assessment as a tool that can support that framework and its implementation. The digital readiness assessment is really a tool that gives rapid and high-level insights into a particular society's strengths and weaknesses when it comes to digital. It's really meant to be a quickly implemented tool that is an entry point for discussion among different parts of a society. It can also be added and used in conjunction with other tools, and it's meant to kind of draw attention and focus on inclusive digital transformation. And when we did the digital readiness assessment in Kosovo, we came out with a number of interesting conclusions. The first thing is that Kosovo is in what we call the systematic stage of development when it comes to digital transformation. And that means that it's well connected. There's been good progress so far, but it's well positioned to make more significant progress. And some of the areas where we point to where we would suggest to look are things like the opportunity to use digital public goods. These are open standards, open software solutions, open data sets that can be used to very quickly put in place digital infrastructure so that more public services can be rolled out. Secondly, we think that greater efficiencies can be gained if we take a principled approach to a national development strategy, or rather a national digital strategy. This includes using things like the principles for digital development, which have very common sense kinds of statements, which is about putting people at the center, making sure that you're building for scale from the beginning, and some of these other kinds of principles. And we believe that can actually really help to strengthen a national digital strategy. Thirdly, that we think that increased monitoring, which is really very important, of digital inclusion and data aggregation will help these efforts. So, for example, it's important that we disaggregate data by gender so that we really know what's going on in this space of inclusion, and then we can design the appropriate responses. And lastly, it's important that we're really consolidating efforts around digital regulation, particularly when it comes to looking at how we might adopt open standards. And there are many examples from different countries of how this can be done, but it's important that you get the right consolidated regulatory framework so that we're making sure that we're not doing any digital harm and that you're actually able to achieve what you set out to when it comes to a national digital strategy. With that, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to hearing more about Kosovo's digital journey. Thank you so much.